Prince Harry nearly broke down in tears in court today, weeping about Meghan Markle's misery. And he was told to stop arguing back by the judge. Well, Prince Harry was giving evidence in his privacy claim against the publisher of the Daily Mail and the Mail on Sunday in the High Court today.
Devastating moment for Prince Harry's reputation and credibility, as he argues with a judge while in the dock, contradicts himself, appears to fib about using the pseudonym Mr. Mischief.
It wasn't a single tense exchange or a brief disagreement. A British prince managed to lock horns with a High Court judge 3 separate times in one single day, and the fallout was immediate. His legal team was reportedly scrambling behind the scenes, while his wife remained 5,000 miles away, casually posting Instagram content as if nothing serious was unfolding. This wasn't just uncomfortable or awkward, it was chaotic in a way nobody could ignore. What played out wasn't a calm legal hearing, but a slow-motion breakdown happening live in court. This is the real account of how Prince Harry's long-awaited court case unravelled into a full-scale mess, right in front of legal experts, journalists, and critics alike. And trust this, the deeper you go, the worse it looks. Here's how the entire situation spiralled. On January 22nd, 2026, Prince Harry stepped into London's High Court believing this would be his defining moment. This was supposed to be the day he finally stood firm, calm, and in control. The atmosphere was meant to signal authority, confidence, and purpose. This moment was meant to look serious, measured, unshakable. Instead, it turned chaotic almost immediately. Harry is suing Associated Newspapers Limited, the company behind the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday, accusing them of phone hacking and illegal information gathering. The allegations stretch across more than a decade, from 2001 through 2013, and the financial stakes are massive. This isn't symbolic either. The case involves an estimated $38 million legal fight, with reputations, credibility, and legacy all hanging in the balance. Harry isn't the only name attached to the lawsuit either. He's leading a group of 7 high-profile figures, including Elton John and Elizabeth Hurley, which was meant to give the case weight and authority.
Prince Harry broke down in big boy tears as he gave some testimony today in his lawsuit against the Daily Mail, claiming that they have made his wife's life an absolute misery.
Prince Harry, right before we got on here, we also found out he's on the stand today in London. He's in court. I feel like every time we come on here, Prince Harry's in court. He doesn't look great in the court sketch, I'm going to be honest.
Well, as we all know, Prince Harry is in the UK. He is testifying around this case that he has against the Associated News.
This lawsuit was framed as Harry's ultimate confrontation with the British tabloid system, his final face-off, his exposure moment, his chance to force accountability and walk away vindicated. But the second Harry entered the witness box, that entire narrative started slipping through his fingers. Let's slow this down and walk through it step by step, because what happened next caught nearly everyone off guard. Picture the courtroom. Harry sits in the witness box, the air tense and watchful. Within minutes, Anthony White, the Daily Mail's barrister, begins questioning him. At first it seems routine, but then Harry doesn't just answer, he pushes back. He debates, he challenges the wording. His tone sharpens, his posture stiffens, and the temperature in the room rises fast. This wasn't controlled confidence, it was agitation spilling into argument. The tension climbed so quickly that the judge had to intervene. Not once, not twice, but 3 different times. And this wasn't just any judge stepping in. This was Justice Matthew Nicklin, a highly experienced media law specialist who has handled some of the most complex press cases in the country. Even with decades of courtroom experience, he was forced to pause proceedings because Harry simply wouldn't stop arguing instead of responding directly. The first interruption was calm, almost diplomatic. The judge attempted to steady the situation and said, and this is a direct quote, "You're doing exactly what lots of litigants do. You tend to argue back about what he's putting to you. You don't have to bear the burden of arguing the case today." That's from Mr. Sherborne. That message couldn't have been clearer. Answer the questions. Let your legal team handle the arguments. That's their role, their job, and their responsibility. But Harry kept pushing. When the judge stepped in a second time, the tone had shifted. The patience in the room was thinning. Harry continued debating instead of answering, circling points instead of addressing them head-on.
Arrogant and pig-headed Harry started arguing with the judge. This was just part of their exchange.
Everything going on with Harry today, I feel like it's a need to talk about his big boy man tears. He's so emotional, guys. His poor wife, she lives in misery in her $16 million mansion with her 4.4 million followers on Instagram, her Netflix deal, her show on Netflix, all these sorts of things. And she's so miserable.
Prince Harry, you're crying on the stand. In life, we don't always get what we want, right? We want friends, okay? We've all been in that situation. We want a friend, a loved one, a relative to take accountability, to apologize. It doesn't happen, okay? You're expecting a big newspaper conglomerate to come crawling to you to apologize. It's not going to happen. You can either move on with your life.
By the third intervention, things turned firm fast. Harry began arguing about what legally qualifies as a journalistic source. That's when the judge shut it down completely. He essentially made it clear, I am a media lawyer. This is my field. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Let that sink in for a second. A prince arguing media law with a high court judge inside the judge's own courtroom. That's not bold. That's dangerous positioning. And here's why it matters more than people realise. This is not a jury trial. There's no audience to sway, no emotional appeal to lean on, no crowd reactions to play into. There is one single person deciding this case. That same Judge Harry challenged 3 times in one morning. That judge alone determines whether Harry wins or loses. Full stop. That's the entire chessboard. And yet Harry couldn't keep his composure for even a single session. One legal analyst present later described Harry as rattled, unsettled, and visibly uncomfortable, saying he never truly found his footing in the witness box. Then came a strategic move that completely threw him off rhythm. The Daily Mail's legal team made a sharp tactical decision the day before testimony. They slashed their opening arguments from a day and a half down to just 90 minutes, forcing Harry's appearance forward by an entire day. The shift caught him off guard, and the lack of preparation showed immediately. This is where things turned emotional and confusing. During testimony, Harry's voice cracked, and he appeared close to tears as he told the court, "They have made my wife's life an absolute misery. I think it is fundamentally wrong to have to put all of us through this again when all we were asking for is an apology and some accountability." At first glance, that sounds heartfelt and emotional. But one critical detail flips the entire moment. This case centers on alleged phone hacking and illegal information gathering between 2001 and 2013. That timeline isn't flexible. It's the foundation of the case. Harry didn't even meet Meghan until 2016. She had no involvement in the articles being challenged. She wasn't referenced, connected, or present during that period of his life. So why was she suddenly central to his testimony? Why elevate her role in a case where she has no legal link? That question hung heavily in the courtroom. And things only grew stranger from there. While Harry stood alone in a London courtroom, with no visible support beside him, no familiar faces watching from the gallery, Meghan was back in Montecito, California. Reports say she was actively posting on Instagram during the same week, showcasing their home, their pool, and their lifestyle.
Showing off their home, their pool, their lifestyle.
I think part of him is happy to be there because he misses the British culture and he hates being at the house of Meghan. I think Prince Harry would rather travel to London to sit in a courthouse than be stuck in the asylum with her in Montecito. Okay, I just think that's the truth. And then some other bad news in Harry and Meghan world, their show has been canceled. Season 3 of With Love, Meghan has been canceled by Netflix. They won't be doing any more, which I'm not shocked because nobody was watching it, okay? That show is like number 5,206 on the Netflix charts. So Harry and Meghan, I think they're done. Okay, Harry and Meghan, if I were you guys, your show's been canceled. You're not going to be the next Martha Stewart, Meghan. I mean, the fact that Meghan Markle had a cooking show and she moved pretzels from one bag into another was crazy.
The public reaction was instant and explosive. One comment read, "Why is he even mentioning her? She has nothing to do with the case all those years." Another said, "She's 5,000 miles away posting online while Harry unravels in court." The optics were brutal. This couple built their public brand around unity, standing shoulder to shoulder against criticism and pressure. Yet when Harry walked into what he calls the most important legal battle of his life, he stood there alone. And people noticed immediately. Just when it seemed like the situation couldn't look worse, it somehow did. Harry then complained in court about the media commercializing his private life, stating directly, "I've never believed that my life is open season to be commercialized by these people." That line stopped people cold. This is the same man who released a 400-page memoir, Spare, filled with deeply personal family moments, private conversations, and messages involving bridesmaids' dresses. He shared intimate life details, past struggles, and personal experiences, turning his own story into a global product. That was followed by a high-budget Netflix documentary documenting his private life, then a massive televised interview watched by tens of millions. So standing in court arguing that the media has no right to commercialize his life landed hard with the public. One comment that gained over 1,200 likes said it bluntly. If Harry wanted privacy, he wouldn't have released Spare. Another followed, saying, "You can't sell your story and then complain about intrusion." That sentiment spread fast. The judge could see it, the lawyers could see it, and everyone watching from the outside could see it too. The issue is simple but explosive. Harry wants control over the narrative while denying everyone else the ability to question it. He wants to profit from his story, but block any outside framing or critique. That contradiction lingered over the courtroom like a storm cloud. And then things became even more uncomfortable when Chelsea Davies' name entered the proceedings, Harry's former girlfriend, whom he dated for years before they split in 2010. Chelsea has long moved on, building a quiet life with her family and running a successful jewellery business, far removed from royal controversy. She's lived with discretion and dignity, yet her name was suddenly pulled straight back into court. Several of the disputed articles involved her, and Harry revealed he had contacted her shortly before testimony to discuss the past. That revelation raised eyebrows instantly, reopening a chapter she clearly closed long ago. The tone Harry used carried visible emotion and regret that many observers couldn't ignore, and that only deepened the discomfort surrounding why her name was being drawn back into a case tied to events from more than a decade ago. What pushed this situation from uncomfortable into downright explosive was the fact that several of the disputed articles Harry is challenging centred on his former relationship with Chelsea Davy, and he openly spoke in court about how the press impacted her life back then. He even revealed that he called her the night before his testimony to discuss what really happened during those years. Pause on that for a second. Think about what that means. Imagine how Chelsea must feel being dragged back into a chapter she closed over a decade ago. Imagine how her husband feels, watching his wife's past get pulled into a courtroom circus they deliberately escaped. This isn't abstract damage, this is personal fallout. Years ago, long before this trial, one comment circulating online said Chelsea should issue a cease and desist and stop Harry from using her name to prop up what they called his ridiculous court case. And that comment didn't come out of thin air. It reflected a growing discomfort people felt about how often her name was resurfacing despite her choosing a private, drama-free life. What made it even more uncomfortable was the tone Harry used when speaking about her in court. Observers noted the emotion, the regret, the heavy, what could have been energy that hung in the air. It wasn't subtle, and it wasn't lost on anyone watching. That emotional weight didn't feel neutral. It felt loaded, and it raised questions Harry probably didn't intend to answer. All of this was unfolding while his current wife was back in California, active on Instagram, sharing curated glimpses of their lifestyle. The contrast was immediate and jarring. People noticed it instantly, and it did absolutely nothing to help his image. The optics were brutal. Then, just as the courtroom energy was already tense, the Daily Mail's lawyers dropped another unexpected twist by introducing something called the Mischief Facebook account. They claimed Harry used this alias to contact journalists on social media, including Charlotte Griffiths from the Mail on Sunday. That allegation landed hard. Harry denied it outright, flat denial. But the defense didn't stop there. They suggested they had receipts to back it up. Messages, timestamps, patterns, and that's when the mood in the room shifted again. This wasn't just about theory anymore. And it didn't end there. One of the journalists Harry accused, Katie Nicholl, pushed back through her legal team and made a clear statement. No, Harry. You invited me to party with you at Kensington Roof Gardens in 2011. That response hit like a punch to the narrative. Because that detail matters. According to her account, they weren't enemies, stalkers, or adversaries. They were part of overlapping social circles, friendly, on good terms, comfortable enough to be at the same events. That single contradiction cracked his story wide open. It suggested Harry wasn't just a passive target being hunted by hostile reporters. It painted a picture of someone who engaged with the media when it suited him, benefited from it when it worked, and now wants to rewrite that history when it no longer does. That shift matters legally, and it matters psychologically. Now this is where things turn truly serious. There are growing reports that key members of Harry's legal team have either resigned or are actively considering stepping away from the case. That is not routine. That is not minor. When solicitors pull back in the middle of an active trial, it's a massive warning sign waving in plain sight. One legal analyst explained it bluntly, saying when lawyers walk away like that, it's usually because the client's instructions are no longer sustainable or the evidence no longer supports the claims. They're not abandoning the law. They're abandoning the version of events being pushed, and suddenly the Daily Mail's strategy starts making a lot more sense. They didn't come in loud or aggressive. They came loaded. Emails, phone records, documentation, clear sourcing trails, evidence pointing to legitimate journalistic methods. That preparation is now putting Harry's entire case under serious pressure. This is the moment where the lawsuit starts looking less like a fight for justice and more like a slow collapse happening in real time. Once the cracks appeared, everything followed. Court insiders began whispering that Harry's testimony wasn't landing the way he thought it would. Instead of coming across calm and credible, he appeared scattered, emotionally reactive, and stuck inside his own head. That's a serious problem, because in court, facts outweigh feelings every time. Multiple legal watchers pointed out that Harry leaned heavily on assumptions instead of solid proof. Over and over again, his answers relied on phrases like believing something happened or feeling certain the press must have been responsible. But belief is not evidence. And in a media law case, that distinction is everything. The defense spotted that weakness instantly. At several points, Harry openly admitted he couldn't prove who leaked what or how specific stories were sourced. He suggested it must have come from illegal activity, but when pressed for specifics, the answers went vague fast. The defense didn't need theatrics. They didn't need volume. They let the gaps speak for themselves. In a courtroom, silence can be louder than shouting. Observers also noticed how often Harry drifted back to his general distrust of the media instead of focusing on the specific articles under dispute. That emotional pattern might resonate in interviews, but inside a courtroom, it weakens your position. This trial isn't about resentment or reputation. It's about proof, timelines, and sourcing. And Harry struggled to stay locked into that lane. Then came the moment that quietly changed the entire temperature of the room. The defense highlighted that many of the articles Harry complained about could be traced back to public appearances, official statements, and well-known social connections. That undercuts the hacking argument in a major way. If information is already public, it doesn't need to be stolen. Several legal experts noted this was the point where the judge leaned in, not emotionally, but analytically. Sympathy took a back seat. The only question left was whether the claims could survive close inspection. That's when the imbalance became obvious. The defense was calm, structured, and document-heavy. Harry's side leaned heavily on memory and narrative. People following the case also noticed another issue. Harry repeatedly framed himself as powerless. But the court kept circling back to an unavoidable reality. He is one of the most recognizable people on the planet. Access, privilege, and influence hung in the background of every exchange. The idea that he had no control over his public image didn't fully add up, and that contrast weakened his argument further. Online reaction only intensified as these details leaked out. Commentators started saying this case wasn't built on solid ground, but on emotion and long-simmering frustration. Some questioned whether the lawsuit was ever about winning at all, or if it was about making a statement, regardless of the outcome. By the end of the day, the mood around the courtroom had clearly shifted. What began as a high-profile challenge to tabloid power now looked like a risky gamble spiraling fast. The confidence Harry walked in with didn't match the uncertainty he carried out. And the most damaging part? None of this was hidden. Every stumble, every unclear answer, every judicial correction was being documented, dissected, and shared in real time. In a case centered on media power, Harry was losing control of the narrative again, right in front of everyone. Then the defense laid out what may be the most damaging point of all. They showed that many of the 14 articles Harry is challenging were built on information from people who willingly spoke to the press. Not hidden hackers, not illegal sources. Some of those sources were reportedly from Harry's own social circle. That detail alone punches a hole straight through the hacking narrative. And it doesn't stop there! Journalist Rebecca English and Katie Nicholl are both set to testify. These aren't anonymous figures or fringe voices. These are established professionals with long careers, stepping forward publicly to defend their reputations. They're not backing down, and that raises the stakes even higher. Now the financial reality starts closing in. If Harry loses this case, he doesn't just walk away disappointed. He could be responsible for the Daily Mail's legal costs. That could run into tens of millions of pounds. That kind of hit would shake anyone. On top of that, reports suggest Harry still owes money from previous legal battles. Some sources even claim his legal exposure may already be hovering around $38 million. This lawsuit was supposed to be his turning point, his payout, his redemption arc, maybe even a way to stabilize serious financial pressure. Instead, it's turning into a very public unraveling, one that threatens to damage him not just legally, but financially, in a way that could follow him for years to come. Pull the camera back for a moment and look at what's really happening here, because this isn't just a bad court day or a messy lawsuit. This is a man caught between two worlds, and right now, neither one is catching him when he falls. On one side, there's the royal world, the life Harry was born into, a system that protected him, smoothed over scandals, managed optics, and quietly cleaned up mistakes before they ever reached the public. That world gave him privilege, access, and a safety net most people will never experience. But Harry didn't just leave that world. He torched the bridge behind him, publicly, loudly. He walked away and then wrote a book tearing into the very institution that once shielded him. Page after page, detail after detail, that door was slammed shut. There is no reset button there, no quiet return, no safety net left. But the second world he tried to build in California isn't holding up either. The Hollywood reinvention was supposed to be the answer. Big deals, big influence, big control over their own narrative. But one by one, those pillars cracked. The Netflix deal fizzled out without delivering the impact promised. The Spotify partnership collapsed in public view. Projects meant to reshape their image didn't land the way they expected. Even their charity efforts struggled to gain momentum, and the brand they were building took hit after hit after hit. Momentum disappeared, confidence slipped, and credibility started taking damage. This lawsuit was supposed to change all of that. This was meant to be the comeback. The reset, the moment where Harry proved he was right all along and everyone else was wrong, a public reckoning that would restore authority and silence critics. Instead, he argued with the judge 3 times in a single day. His legal team is reportedly stepping back. The evidence hasn't lined up cleanly with the claims, and contradictions pulled straight from his own book came back into focus at the worst possible time. On top of that, the person he says this entire fight is about wasn't even in the courtroom. That detail didn't go unnoticed. Public opinion didn't hesitate either. The reaction online was instant and unforgiving. Comment sections across platforms lit up within hours. One person wrote, "He's his own worst enemy," while another added, "Court is for facts, not feelings." A comment that kept getting shared over and over again said, "Maybe if he hates the press so much, he and his wife should stop phoning them." That sentiment spread fast because it tapped into something deeper. Here's the hard truth people keep circling back to. Harry wanted to be seen as a warrior for justice, a man standing up to powerful media forces, someone brave enough to challenge a system he claims caused real harm. But that's not the image many people are walking away with now. Instead, What they see is someone who appears entitled, deflecting responsibility, and struggling to handle criticism. Someone who wants full control over how his story is told while denying that same space to anyone else. He wants to profit from his life story, but stop others from writing about it. He wants the spotlight when it benefits him, but silence when it doesn't. And that contradiction is becoming impossible to ignore. It's not landing with the judge, it's not landing with the lawyers, and it's definitely not landing with the public. The court doesn't run on emotion or grievance. It runs on evidence, timelines, and consistency. And when those elements don't line up, sympathy disappears fast. What makes this entire saga so uncomfortable is that the signs are obvious to almost everyone watching. The judge seems to see through it. The opposing lawyers clearly see through it. The public reaction shows people see through it. The only person who doesn't appear to fully see it is Harry himself. And that may be the most unsettling part of all. Because when someone is trapped in their own narrative, every challenge feels like an attack, every contradiction feels unfair, and every correction feels personal. That mindset doesn't work in a courtroom, and it doesn't work in the court of public opinion either. This case is no longer just about tabloids or phone hacking. It's become a mirror reflecting bigger questions about accountability, credibility, and control. Is this about justice? Or is it about wanting the last word? Is this about protecting privacy? Or about deciding who gets to speak and who doesn't? Those questions are hanging heavy now. So here's the real question everyone keeps asking. Is Harry right to take on the tabloids and fight what he believes is media overreach? Or is this shaping up to be one of the clearest examples of public contradiction and hypocrisy we've seen in years? That's not a question the court alone will answer. That's a question playing out in real time, across public opinion, media coverage, and credibility itself. And now it's your turn. If you've been watching this unfold and you've got thoughts, drop them in the comments below, because this conversation is far from over. If this breakdown made you see the situation differently, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next deep dive. And if you found value in this analysis, don't forget to like the video and share it with someone who needs to see the full picture.